Alrighty, Chapter 1. We in Chapter 1, boys. Welcome. If you haven't saw the preface video, that's just me talking about what's ahead of the road on this long journey. If you want to stick with me, I'm going to attempt to teach the chapter, the book Tonal Harmony, and hope not to get sued. This is all for educational purposes, wink wink. Tonal Harmony by Stefan Koska and Dorothy Payne. So Stefan and Dorothy, please do not sue me. This is for me to learn how to teach, and hopefully for my audience to learn some music. Besides, if you sue me, you can't get $1 off me, because you know what? I haven't made a freaking single penny off of any of this stuff, all right? Cost me way more than I spend on all this stuff. Cost me more time. Cost me more money. Anyway. If you hear me? If you sue me, I'm freaking broke already. Curse you. I don't got no sponsorships. If you want to sponsor me, go for it. I don't got no sponsorships. I don't got no deals. I don't got no freaking record label. I don't got nothing. I don't got nothing to my name. Sad, but it's true. All right. So everybody, come be like me, broke, poor, struggling musician. All right. No, but I just want to teach. I want to learn how to teach a bit. So here we go. Chapter 1. We're gonna go through and just see what we can get out of this book. I'm gonna attempt to show you all the stuff that I learned in musical college for all 4 semesters, chapter by chapter by chapter. I'm armed with 3 jank cameras, nice guitar, an okay piano, an amazingly complicated computer system, and a cup of water. We'll see what we can do. So, chapter 1 begins with keyboard and the octave registers. Let's show you here. Has a nice picture of keyboard. You can see that. I remember when we first got in there, they basically sat me in front of the keyboard and they ran some basic, diagnostics on me. On every student. They said, I don't remember all the diagnostics, but one of them for sure that stuck out the most. He played a note on the piano and then he said, hum it, to see if we understood pitch. So he would go like this. Can y'all hear that? Do. And we would have to match it. And then he'd go like this. So that's kind of what they would do. So if you don't know how to do that, sit yourself in front of a piano, see if you can just match the pitches. Another thing that they did, I believe, was they sat us in front of the piano, they pointed to a note on the piano, and they said, what note is this? And so if they would point to this note right over here, if you can see this. Yeah, you can see that. If they're like that, they'd be like, what note is this? And I'd be like, D. And they'd be like, D what? And I'm like, what do you mean D what? And they're like, what register is it in? I was like, oh shit. There's more. There's more than just the note name. So yeah, this would be a D. I'm still shaky on it. D, 3, 4, 5. I guess D5? Because this is C3, right in the middle there. This is D3, D4, D5. You follow me? All right, anyway. They have different note names, different octave classes, pitch classes. So, that's one thing that they did. Be ready for that. Middle C is C4, by the way. I messed that up. It says right here in the book. Middle C is C4. See that? Middle C, right there. C4. So that's actually D6. That is a D6. Anyhow, it's not important because I play the guitar, right? No, it messed me up even more because... Didn't mess me up, but it played with me even more because the guitar is tuned an octave down, which I didn't know. And it's read an octave down. So when you see a C3 on freaking guitar, and then you play C3 on piano, the piano's an octave up. So that's like... Anyway, you start to realize once you start to get into different instruments how freaking annoying it becomes to transpose all this stuff. So knowing the pitch class is super important. I have a website here with a bunch of... kind of tries to condense all of this stuff. I think I did a good job here. Anyway, if you take a look at this website, sonamor.weebly.com/lessons, you'll find all these pictures in here. And one of these pictures lets you know the names, the pitch. Going from one octave to the next, if y'all know what an octave is, hopefully y'all know what an octave is. Octave is like, it's like hitting a C here and then hitting a C here. So like I was saying with the guitar is an octave lower. An octave is the same note in a different pitch octave class. Oh, it says right here. Thank you, Romanos. A pitch class is the letter name. So an A. All A's are in the same pitch class. The pitch is A. The octave class is something you see a little bit less common. It would be A3 or A4, A5. They don't typically refer to A3 or A4, whatever, A5. It's usually just A. You'll find just A. But technically, the correct way to write this is A3, or the pitch class followed by the octave class. More commonly, you'll see stuff like A440. That's the most common one. Or A432 for all you hipsters. The 440 is the hertz. Scientifically, how many frequencies per second the wave occurs. How many repetitions per second it occurs. This one is actually super helpful when you get into like the harmonic series, for example. Both of these are actually helpful, but this one in particular, because you can start to divide the waves by even numbers like 880 or 1620, or 1720. Yeah, so then they talk about the X and Y axis. Pretty weird here. Pretty weird what they're talking about here, but it makes sense if you already know this stuff. So a pitch occurs. This is from the last one. File, new, don't save. So if you got like, here's a little music stuff. Hey, if you have a pitch and it's going like this, 1, 2, 3. These are the vertical aspects This is the vertical aspect of music, pitch. When you have a rhythm, which they go over later, a rhythm, let's make that a sharp. That's a nice applied dominant. Yeah. We Bugs Bunny in here. So when you have a rhythm, this will be 4/4, and also freaking whatever. Oh, that ain't no B sharp. That's a B natural. B natural, technically. Fucking staff paper, dude. This shit still gets me. I hate how lame all this stuff is. Anyway, let's rewrite this stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we got this right here. 4/4. It's in the key of F, I guess. Who cares? We'll use the first one. I think actually this little symbol, that little key signature, I think it goes before the time signature. I still forget all this stuff. But because it's been a while since I was writing on actual staff paper. Gets to the point where you just kind of internalize it, you know what I mean? Anyhow. Camera's a little bright. I'll try to fix that real quick. I think it's because of this. Yeah, whatever. So, the point is, there's a vertical aspect of music, the y-axis, and there's a horizontal aspect, the x-axis. It's just like the graph in math, where this is -1, this is -1, this is 1, this is 1, and this is 0. This is 0, 0. Right in the middle is 0, 0. And the higher up you go, the higher up in pitch you go. The further out you go, the farther along in the measures you go, the more beats you get. So if this is in 4/4, then this would be a measure line right here. And we have two measures. Do, mi, so, so, fi, so, fi, so. Do, mi, so, so, fi, so, fi, so. Do, mi, so. Yeah. The vertical is the chord because it occurs at the same time. The x-axis is time. Time. The y-axis is pitch. Pitch and time. Got it? All right. So we take that for what it is. It's not too complicated. Takes time to develop that line. But with a chord, it occurs all at once. Bing. Right at once. So let's see what we got here next. Then they talk about ledger lines. If you got, everybody knows what ledger lines is, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got a little staff right here. Oop. Your little staff right here. A ledger line. If you got some notes here, boop, 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 boop. A ledger line are the notes that aren't in here. They have to put them on a ledger line, like a little additional note. And if it's like down here, you can extend it downward. The problem comes, I'll let you in on a secret. So if you've ever seen piano music kind of looks like this. They've got this whole thing going on. It's called a grand staff. That's the shittiest lines ever. Whatever. It's a combination of a treble clef and a bass clef. And the shitty part comes in where if you don't know that one ledger line below is a C on the treble clef and one ledger line above is a C on the bass clef, the same C. It's a C3, I think. C4? One of them. C4, I think. It's a middle C. It's C4, middle C. If you don't know that these are actually the same note, it will screw you royally, especially the way that music is written. Like, they don't make anything even, and I can show you on different scores how they will stretch and they'll skew notes to fit the page just for print. It's super annoying. So they'll give you this shit. They'll be like, oh, here's a whole note and then another whole note. And then they'll be like, oh, here's an eighth note with another eighth note. Now, even though these two notes are twice as fast as these two, they're the same spacing visually because they just input it on the computer and then the computer spits it out the same way that they just like combine words or whatever. Like in paragraphs, when computers spit out paragraphs, they will chop off words or scrunch words or whatever, or scrunch spaces just to make a square, on the page. It's super annoying. I believe that this type of scrunching and this type of scrunching here leads people to have difficulty reading because it hides the phrasing. It hides the phrasing visually. Anyhow, we'll probably get into more of those later. So this right here, technically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Technically, this is how music should be written. Right there. Only one ledger line in between for the grand staff. But they don't do that because of printing and spacing reasons. They want to save as much paper as possible or whatever the hell. At the cost of screwing everybody's reading comprehension. I guess you saved a few pieces of paper, though. It's a good thing you saved all that paper. Meanwhile, you get like thousands of flyers in the mail, thousands of freaking credit card upgrade things with fancy thick paper and fancy ink, all this shit. It's so funny how wasteful humans are, and then they'll save like the littlest bits, and they'll be like, oh, we're recycling or whatever. We're trying to save the planet. Meanwhile, there's like corporations dumping like so much shit into the ocean. Anyway. Like you're never going to offset it. You have to stop the evil at the source. Okay. Anyway. That's very off topic. Okay, so this right here, now they both have their problems, but this right here that comes with the problem of if you have a melodic line in the bass and it goes up and then it keeps going up past C, it's kind of hard for people to know which clef that the melody is implying. Like typically the bass clef is your left hand and the treble clef is your right hand. So if you see a line going from your left hand spot moving up to the right hand spot, it's kind of visually like, do I switch hands or do I keep playing? You know, it's like a contextual type deal. Anyhow, we'll get into that later. So, yeah, they show a couple different like octave classes here. Not that crazy. They're like, this is a C4 and a treble clef. This is a C4 and a bass clef, which is what I just mentioned up here. This is a C and an alto clef. This is a C and a tenor clef. One thing I'll mention about that while I'm on the topic is that, so when you see me drawing these lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if you think this shit is hard to like draw or whatever, just practice it 1,000 times. So the way this is written, 2, 3, 4, 5, try to make it big. So a treble clef begins along this line, the F, or the E, my bad. And I believe that this little thing is on the D note. It goes up to the G. And actually, this thing is a G. It's the letter G. It's the letter G. And then it makes a little note D again, D and D, the bottom and the top. The D crosses the D line and makes a G right around the G, just like that. That's it. The G is right there on the G line. And the D crosses on both the D5 and the D4 down here. So D4, D5, G4, and G5. Fly like a G6. All right. So that's kind of how you draw a treble clef. And a bass clef is the letter F. Yeah, these are only one letter apart, G and F. Comes into play later. So then a bass clef is within the margins of the top and the bottom line. Bass clef starts top line, ends at the bottom line, and it goes just like this. Boop, boop. That's an F. It's a letter F. And these two dots, guess what, are right there on the what note? The F note. Look at that. Isn't that funny? So the F note is kind of, how would you say it? Like a marker. It's like, this is a G right here, boom. This is an F, boom, right there. F, I think it's 3. Yeah. And you'll notice that the lines that it's marking are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right here. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right here. It's the second line. So when you see a grand staff like this, with both the treble clef and the bass clef, sorry, it's kind of shitty, they're marking this second line, second from the bottom and then second from the top. You see that? See how it's marking the second line? These symbols they mean something. And when you realize what they mean, it makes it so much easier to understand. The last one that you'll see less and less is an alto clef or tenor clef, whatever. The alto, they're just one note off, one note difference. But it's basically a C. If you look at it, it's a C. And it's got like fancy freaking, it's got like a fancy hook on the top and the bottom. And the C marks the C right there. The C will let you know where the C is. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's C4. I want to say C4, but I could be wrong. It's been so long since I read clefs like that. Alto, tenor, clef, whatever. So let's see, alto, clef. I want to show you what the real, yeah, that one right there. If you've ever seen this, that's what it looks like for real. Can you see the C in there? It's like a fancy like hook type of C, and it's got like two hooks on top and bottom, and it's like spiky, whatever. But right there, that middle line, it's letting you know that that's a C. That's the root of a C. Okay. So, and guess what? So if this is a C, oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. Do you know your little, what do they call it? Circle of fourths? Cycle of fifths? Look at that. G, F, and C. Look at that. Doesn't that make sense? From C to F is a fourth up. From C to G is a fourth down. Excuse me. It's your tonic, dominant. I'm messing it, whatever. That's not the tonic. It's your tonic, dominant, and subdominant. It's your 1, your 4, and your 5, just like that. Pretty easy to remember. Anyhow, that's that. So what do we got here? What's next, Captain? That was just some on how to write music, proper ways on how to write music, how to know what you're dealing with. Yeah. Before I forget, hopefully this is correct here. Yeah, I want to touch upon the order of your symbols here, because sometimes you'll start writing music and you'll be like, oh shit, I don't know what goes in between what. So you got your little clef. What follows the clef is the times key signature. My bad. Key signature. And then the time signature. And then your notes, the actual start of the song. Piece of music, whatever. You want to get anal about it, it's called a piece of music. Technically, a song is sung. A song has to have a human voice. Whatever. I still call them songs. Okay. So, after you know if it's your clef, like whatever clef you're in, you have to know, well, what key am I in? But let's call it one of these bad boys. We're in the key of G right now. After you know what key you're in, you have to say what time signature, how many beats there are. 4 beats per measure, quarter note gets the beat, whatever. So there's this many types of, there's this many notes, and this is what type of note there are. There's 4 quarter notes. So if you see this, 6, 8, there's 6 eighth notes. If you see this, 12, 9, which is like impossible. It's not impossible, whatever. There's 12 ninth notes. All right? Even though this is not real. You'll see this, 12, 8. I'm just trying to show you, like, there's this many type of this many notes. Okay? All right. So, the reason they put the key signature before the time signature is in case when you start your song and you have a note here that immediately has some sort of accidental on it, a sharp or a flat, you won't confuse it with having the sharps and the flats next to each other. So if you had it like this, and you had a little key signature here, and it said 4/4, and then you put the key signature just before the song, just after the time signature. If you put a key signature like freaking crazy key signature, like keep it simple. We'll choose D major. Something with a lot of imagine you had like a lot of sharps here, and then you start the song off with a sharp, another sharp, like a sharp A. You're going to be like, oh wait, is that part of the key signature? And you don't want that to happen. So this time signature divides the key signature and the actual song accidentals. So it's a nice little like, what do they call it? Bookend, divider, shelf, splitter, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It's a nice little divisive symbol. It's super clever how all this stuff is written. All right. We're going to go through the whole chapter, chapter 1 here. It's a pretty long chapter, but I think it's worth it to just go at it all the way through. We talk about ledger lines, baloney. Y'all know about ledger lines. It's self-test. It gives you a long piano, and it tells you, please write in the notes with the pitch class and octave class. And then it does the opposite. It gives you staff. And it gives you a note with a pitch class with an octave class, like C4, G3, and it tells you to write it on the various staff. So it gives you a treble clef, a bass clef, an alto clef, and a tenor clef. And then in the end, it does the same thing, but it gives you a grand staff. Gives you a grand staff to write all that stuff. And do you see what they're doing here? Do you see they're falling into the mistake that I said? They're putting a huge space. Even though one ledger line below and one ledger line above here, one ledger line below the treble clef is a C4, and one line above the bass clef is a C4. So these two notes that would be super far away are technically the same note. And visually, that shit is confusing as fuck. All right. Here, we jump in. We jump in, boys. After they tell you about the notes, we jump in to the major scale. Already, they're on your ass about this major scale. Now, I can't stress enough how important the major scale is to pretty much all music. The major scale is the fundamental building block of all music. It's a fundamental building block of modes, keys, tonal harmony, everything. If you don't know your major scale, right here, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. If you don't know that stuff, better get on it, dog. Super important. And I understand why they put it like right in the beginning of the book. Because they're trying to tell you like, yo, this is useful everywhere. It says it here it says it here on my website. It stems from the natural division of waves from the harmonic series. It exists. What does it say here? It resonates with itself, uncaring if you acknowledge it or not. It exists, and you don't have to acknowledge it for it to exist. It simply exists. If you ignore it, you're being willfully ignorant. So here, it shows you whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. It's trying to show you how a major scale is built. Now, if you see on these in the piano, it's trying to show you how the white keys from C to C build a major scale, just by its nature. Between the third and the fourth scale degree, and the seventh and the eighth, the seventh and the first, there exists a half step. There is no black key. So technically, the third note of the scale, the major scale, is a leading tone to the fourth note of the major scale. Let me correct myself. The third scale degree of the major scale is a leading tone to the fourth scale degree. And the seventh scale degree of the major scale is a leading tone to the eighth scale degree, or the first. And this also works backwards. The fourth scale degree can lead to the third, and the first scale degree can lead to the seventh, if you're crafty. They try to show you, now again, this was confusing to me, but because it's evenly spaced, it doesn't really visually resonate with me. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. That's how I learned it in high school. We went whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. It's like a rhythmic, it's a pneumatic device. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Major second, minor second. Major second, minor second. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. You can see here, you can hear, you can listen. A half tone really leads itself to the note right next to it. It has a really strong pull. But a whole tone it almost feels like it can stay there. Like if I'm going like this. It almost feels like I can stay at that. Even though I'm just changing to this. The 5 to the 6. there's a whole step in between them. This whole step, it brings more of a change. The whole step lets you know that changes are occurring. A half step still retains that pull. A half step has a pull to it. Simple as that. I'd like to show you how I like to see and visualize the major scale. So instead of going whole, whole, half, like whatever, evenly spaced stuff, really, like, especially on the guitar, because the guitar is built in half steps. Like, if you could see this. I can bring it close to the camera here. One finger probably is more visually. So when you're navigating the guitar, it's super important to understand half steps and whole steps in a spaced out, a properly spaced out and properly measured type way. That's a half step, half step. If you don't know where your whole steps and your half steps look like, if you don't know what they look like, man, is it difficult to wrap your head around, like, tonality and intervals. They have to be properly spaced for the interval purposes. Like, here, when I think of a scale, I think of it like this. So I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 12. Whatever. So these are like frets. And when I see a scale, a major scale, I'm not thinking like the whole half. Like, I'm thinking visually 2 frets, 2 frets, 1 fret, 2 frets, and this is my 5th scale degree. This is my 1st scale degree. Two frets, and then the cycle repeats right here. Boop. This could be drawn a little bit better. But I hope you understand that visually, the jump between these notes and these notes, it's important to visually realize that it's a small little boo-deep, 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 boo-deep. It's small. It's such a small little jump. It also helps to know that they kind of point towards, you'll learn this later, they point towards the notes in the chord. So if this is a 1, this is like C major chord, C, E, and G. That's your 1st, your 3rd, and your 5th scale degrees. And then back to the 1st scale degree. See up here. Visually, knowing where these jumps are will help you figure out the 1st, 3rd, and 5th, and the other next root of the chord. Visually. You don't even have to know the name of the freaking notes. Just visually, they will point you towards the right note. That's what I'm trying to get at. Visually, it's important to understand that what you're seeing on a piano, when you look at this and you see, if you're looking at this piano and you see that it's just white keys, how the fuck are you supposed to know? Like, look at this piano. If all you see are white keys, how the hell are you supposed to know where the half steps are? That's my biggest gripe with the piano. It's like, if you're playing in the key of C, people say, oh, I can only play in the key of C. Sometimes the key of C is the hardest freaking key because you don't know where your fingers are at unless you touch a black key. The black keys help you know where you're at in the scale. So if you just see this and all of these are evenly spaced, here, it's like, where the hell am I in the scale? If you were deaf, like Bach or Beethoven, you simply wouldn't know where you're at when you're playing. It's extremely frustrating. Extremely frustrating when playing by ear and all that stuff. Okay. So if you add to the fact that like modern keyboards can transpose themselves up and down, and people are just like transposing the keyboard so they can just play, and it feels like they're in the key of C all the time, even though they're playing in the key of F or B flat or whatever. They're kind of setting themselves up for failure because without staring at the keyboard and playing or hearing, like being super in tune with what you're hearing, you won't know where your half steps are, where your whole steps are. All right. That's just something that I definitely ran into as a problem when I was learning. Visually, they do a poor job of defining half steps and whole steps here. They go on to talk about some things called, I'm sure you're familiar with flats and sharps, which is this, and naturals, if you've ever seen that. This is not a B, by the way. I believe it was like, if I'm not mistaken, it's an arrow pointing downward, kind of, like a little half arrow. I'm probably wrong. But I know it's not a B. Not a B. This is I don't really know why this is tic-tac-toe board. They use tic-tac-toe board for a sharp. But I know that this has something to do with the right angles, even though this kind of almost looks like a tic-tac-toe board. It's very frustrating when you see these symbols and they're written very small. It's hard to tell in between what they are. Anyhow, there's also something called a double sharp, which is simply an X, or a double flat, which I guess they ran out of ideas and they just put two flats next to each other. So, a sharp brings everything up by one half tone, semitone. A flat lowers everything by one semitone. And a natural means it's square. It's right. It's what the clef is implying. So it's exactly what the clef is implying. A double sharp raises everything by two semitones, or a whole tone. One whole tone. A double flat lowers everything by two semitones, or one whole tone. So, if you got a little staff right here, and you're like, we have a C, natural. Well, that's the same as a B sharp. even though B sharps kind of don't really exist. They kind of do, they don't. C natural is a B sharp. Let's use a different example because C's and B's, they're a whole whatever. They're half step apart. Let's use a different example. If you got an A, you got to shake it. I'm just kidding. If you got an A, that's the same as a G. I'm sorry, if you got a G, my bad. If you got a G, that's the same as an F double sharp. So that's what a double sharp looks like. It looks pretty funky. If you got a G, it's the same as an A double flat. I guess we could use the C and the B here. So if you got a C here, like I said before, and it's natural, it's the same as a B sharp. If you got a F flat, gosh, my handwriting sucks here. Hold on, let me make a bigger staff. Big staff. You got an F. You got an F flat here. That's the same as an E natural. See that? See how confusing all this shit is? So when you see notes like this, you'd be like, why the fuck is this shit written as an F double sharp? Why? Why, God? Why? Why don't they just make everything one? Why are there freaking 3-4 different spellings for the same damn note? Huh? Because, young Padawan, when you're writing in different key signatures, sometimes a key signature will have like sharps in it already. So let's say we're in the key of freaking D again. And you're looking at a C sharp, and it's going to a D. But you have some advanced freaking smartass who wants to modulate to the key of E flat. But they don't want to write a whole new key signature. They're just tonicizing it. So you'll kind of come in here like, I'm going to have a C sharp. No, double sharp. I'm going to have a C double sharp. And then I'm going to have a D sharp. And then I'm going to have an E. Or whatever the fuck. I think my explanation of modulating to E flat was wrong. But whatever. If they're modulating to E, I guess. So this D sharp and this C double sharp are important because it's visually saying that you're going up by the dots. Sometimes they just go by the dots. I swear to God, that's why they have all this bullshit. They want to make it visually just go up because they don't want to put this. They don't want to put. If you have an E here, if the E is the final piece of the final resting note, whatever, and then you have an freaking E flat or whatever, it's technically the same as D sharp. They don't want to put D, E flat, E. You feel me? They want it to be visually nice. It's making up for the fact that the staff notation is flawed. So typically, if you had that, the correct way, the most typical way would be a D, and then a D sharp. If you go up, you use a sharp. If you're going, if you have the reason you would not use an E flat here is because a flat implies that the line, the melodic line, is going downward. If you had an E flat, typically it would lead to a D, but it's not. A D and then a D sharp and then an E is the typical, most common way to write this. But if you want it to be like visually nice, sometimes you'll go like this. C double sharp, D sharp, E. Do you get it? It's cleaner, sort of. It depends in the context of what you're writing. So if you had this line, G, and it chromatically falls down to F, the most common way would be to put a G flat right here. You would not use an F sharp. You would not use an F sharp. No. That's not right. And you would absolutely not use an E double sharp. See how confusing this would be? You'd be reading the note, it would go down and then up, even though the line is just going straight down. It gets really complex when there's a whole string of chromatics. This is why in the 20th century, when you start to see people explore different notation, you should see the Schoenberg. I think it's Schoenberg. He finds a way to eliminate the key signature, the clef, by having I think it's a six note staff, and you can have notes. I think it's either, what is it? It's like touching the bottom line, or floating in the middle, or touching the top line, or crossing the line. Anyhow, complex shit. So going back to the order of this book. First, they teach you fundamentals and chords, the major and minor scale, just 7 easy notes. And then they start to teach you how to break those rules. And once you get into the 20th century down here, that's when shit gets weird, because they start using so much chromaticism that it becomes freaking hard to read. All right? I hope that makes sense. The chromaticism used to just be here and there. Just here and there. Just a little sharp, a little flat here, a little double sharp here. Oh, double sharp. Very, very complex. Oh. Used to be just a little bit. And then 20th century came around and they're just like, yo, let's mess with all this stuff. It became wild, dog. It became wild. Okay, that's beyond the scope of this now. So there's your lesson on double sharps and double flats. On my website, you can also see somewhere around here. It's similar to this. Your perfect is kind of like a natural. When a minor is kind of like a flat, a diminished, it's like a double flat, and then you have doubly diminished, which is kind of like a triple flat. Same way in the other direction. Major is like a sharp. Augmented is like a double sharp, kind of. Doubly augmented is like a triple sharp. Anyhow. I don't really go into double sharps and double flats here. on the website. But that's a big old crash course on double sharps and double flats. Let's see what we got. Oh, more major scales, huh? Here they try to show you. I'm not going to draw it. I'll just show you it. So they try to build a regular-ass major scale, and they show you where the accidental is. You see that? You see the sharp on the second to last note? There on that F? Right there on that F note. They try to show you, in a much simpler way than I did, how when you build a major scale like this, that's where the sharps and flats come into play. We used to have acronyms. We used to have acronyms. If you're not familiar with this, in high school and stuff, when they're just introducing all this stuff, they'd be like, "Oh, the spaces are called F-A-C-E, base, and the lines are E-G-B-D-F." And they had like all sorts of different acronyms for this. Every good boy deserves fudge. I think Everybody Loves Raymond. There was a joke where he's like, Ellen Garby's butt deserves framing. Anyway. So there's like different pneumatic devices, but like if you're still memorizing like FACE and EGBDF, like you'll soon realize when you start writing that the acronyms kind of go away. You'll just know this is an F. This is a B. This is another F. You just know. The ledger lines is where it starts getting a little complicated. Ace. You'll start to realize that it just repeats all the way up. Bass, face, whatever. Bass, EGBDF, bass, EGBDF. So like down here, just go infinitely or whatever. This is C, this is an A, this is an F. Right? You following me? So here's where the pattern repeats. It goes from face to Ellen Garby's butt deserves framing. So FACE, and then this F is common right here. See that? F, D, B, G, E. You'll never go this low. But if you memorize like 3 or 4 spaces up and down, it's good. And it's important to realize how these two, so the F here connects with the F here, and the E here connects with the E here. See, face, Ellen Garby's butt deserves framing, face, Ellen Garby's butt deserves framing, face. If you memorize this kind of this pattern, you're also memorizing the cycle of thirds, which is great because the cycle of thirds will help you with chords. C, E, G. That's a C major chord. G, B, D. That's a G major chord. B, D, F. That's a B diminished chord. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it helps you with chords and stuff. The more you learn about this stuff, the more these kind of little pneumatic devices just kind of fade into your background memory. It's in the ether. If you need it, you'll pull it out. But typically, it dissolves into something much more dense. You know what I mean? When you build up that musical knowledge, it'll just mix into all the rest, and it'll just be like something that you can recall on if you're truly lost. I remember I would, when I do my exercise, I vividly remember I would be doing upside down handstands. And instead of counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because that shit's boring, I would be going E, G, B, D, F, A, C, E, G, B, D, F, A, C, E, G, B, D, F, A, C, E, and backwards too. E, C, A, F, D, B, G, E, C, A, F, D, B, G, E, C, A, F, D, B, G. I would be saying the cycle of thirds, fourths, and fifths up and down. It would be very funny. And also seconds, dude. Don't knock doing the cycle of seconds, too. Like literally A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then backwards. The inversion of seconds is seventh. So A, G, God dang, still, it messes me up still because it's been like so long. A, G, F, E, D, C, B, A, G, F, E, D, B, C, D, whatever. I messed it up, but still, it's worth doing those patterns a couple times to just get it in your head. So the reason you have to get it in your head early is because you don't want to be sitting there writing and getting stuck for minutes, hours at a time, however long. There we go. Flickering camera. You don't want to be sitting there writing, trying to recall all this shit all the time. It should be automatic. It should come out just boom. You shouldn't sit down to write and be like, freaking F, A, C, E, Ellen Garby's butt deserves... Like, you don't want that. You don't want to have to spend time doing that. You should just look at this line and be like, B. That's a B. That's a D. That's a C. That's an A. That's a G. You feel me? Imagine not only writing, imagine reading. Imagine having to read. Now, a lot of you are probably at this stage already where you're reading and the notes are like, it's super hard for you to understand what note is what the letters are, what pitch class it is, what octave class it is. Imagine in English, if you're reading English and you had to sit there and look at the word, something easy like the, and you're like, that's a T, is that an A or an H? H, A, H, H, that's it. What is that, a P or an R? No, it's an E. E, T-H-E, taha. Oh, wait, what's the rule? What's the rule with T and H? The. Is it the? Like, do you see how these? You see what I'm talking about? These like rules, even though they're kind of stupid or whatever, it will help you in the ultimate goal of reading. I encourage you all to stand upside down, practice your handstands, and say your cycles of seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, and sevenths. I encourage you. It will help you. All right. I'm going to be honest. We might need to do a two-parter here because we're only up to major scales. And we be rambling, boys. Yeah, I'm going to break this into two parts. I'm going to get through the minor key signatures, and then I'm going to call this a two-parter. So, just like what I was saying, one thing leads to the next. They start to introduce you to key signatures. They start to introduce you to these key signatures. I'll try to pull them up here. Boink. Where we are? Where are we at? Where are we at? They're around here somewhere. No way, I didn't put them here. They gotta be here. I remember so vividly. Huh. I might have removed it from the page. All right. We'll see what we got here. Maybe it's under this one. Lesson. I did a little graph of the key signatures. There they are. Beautiful, beautiful key signatures. All right. So this little graph here, it shows you how these key signatures are built upon fourths and fifths, which are the same. Fourths are just inverted fifths. So G, D, A, E, B, G, D, A, whatever. So from G to D is a fifth. From D to A is a fifth. From A to E is a fifth. From E to B is a fifth. From B to G flat is a fifth. Incorrect. Incorrect. It's a fourth. It's like an F sharp. B to F sharp. No, it's a fifth. It's an enharmonic fifth. I was right. B to G flat is an enharmonic fifth, whatever. Then you go to G flat, D flat, A flat. All these are fifths. And you can see, I'll try to make it even bigger. Pause. So you can see how when you're adding, like some people are like, oh, I don't know what the order of the sharps and the flats are, like when I'm writing them. They alternate, but it's not really alternating. It's like going up a fourth and down a fifth, and up a fourth and down a fifth, and up a fourth and down a fifth. Bing bong, bing bong, bing bong, bing bong, bing bong, bing bong. The sharps go up until here they run out of lines, and they're forced to put it down. You see there? You see that? See right here? With G, the first sharp is on an F. Then with D, the first sharp is on a C. The second sharp is on a C. It goes from F to C. F, A, C. F, A, C is a fifth. And if you invert that, it's a fourth. Goes down a fourth, and then down a fourth again, whatever. So F, C, and then G. From C to G is a fourth. But they want to show you that sharps go up for some reason. They want to make it like consistent, sort of. Can you see here how the flats are like going down? They go down. They go down. Down that way, I guess. It alternates. Very intuitive. There's a lot of tricks with these key signatures. There's a lot of tricks, and there's a reason that they write them this way. I can show you their tricks, maybe at a later point. After we learn about intervals, maybe. So, something to note here, some things to note. Fuck it, dude, I'll teach you a little bit. I'll teach you a little bit about key signatures here. So, we in here, boys. There's a huge amount of tricks to these key signatures. Not only in the way that they're written, the sharps go up, and the flats go down. The sharps start on a high one and they go lower, the flats start on a low one and they go higher. The flats, when you begin a key signature with only one flat or a key signature with only one sharp, it starts on the tritone between B and F. Do you see here? B and F. This flat is on a B, and this flat is on an F. There's a reason for that. It has to do with the intervals. Now, we didn't go over intervals yet, but I'm just going to jump ahead here because I'll probably go over it again when we talk about intervals. It'll become much more clear. But that tritone is kind of like a guidepost because the tritone is equal on both directions. From B to F and from F to B, it's equal. Unlike the tonic and the dominant, the first scale degree and the fifth scale degree, where if you go up from the first scale degree to the fifth scale degree, you have a perfect fifth, but if you go from the fifth scale degree to the first, you have a perfect fourth. It's a smaller jump. It's a smaller jump. I'll try to illustrate that. So from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's smaller than going from 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 1. So P5, perfect fifth, is smaller visually than a perfect fourth. But the tritone, if you're going from, let's say, this is a leading tone right here. If you're going from the leading tone to the fourth, and then to the leading tone again, they're both tritones. And even though one is a diminished fifth and the other one is an augmented fourth, when it comes to the intervals, the raw amount of semitones that you're jumping, it's 6. Because they're equal. These are 6 semitones, and these are 6 semitones. Whereas these are 7 semitones. The perfect fifth is 7 semitones, and the perfect fourth is only 5 semitones. So 7 and 5 compared to 6 and 6. See that? All right, lots of special things with these key signatures. Another thing, you'll be like, damn, bro, I ain't gonna memorize all that shit. How am I supposed to know which key signature is which, and how am I supposed to know? Couple rules, some rules that they taught me, little pneumatic device, or whatever devices to memorize. For the sharps, this is what they taught me in high school. The sharps, you go to the last sharp in the key signature, and you go up by 1. That's what key you're in. So if you see a friggin' thing with a bunch of sharps like this, what the hell is this? All these sharps. You go to the last one, that's an A, and you go up by a line or space, whatever, just one, boop. That's the key you're in. You're in B. Over here, you go to the last sharp, which is a G, go up by 1, boop. That's an A. You're an A. You're in the key of an A. Key of an A. Key of A. Major, whatever. Same for E. Boop, 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 boop. The last one is D. You go up by 1. You're in the key of E. For the flats, you go to the second last flat, and that's what key it is. So the only one that doesn't work for is F, but that's easy enough because it's the easiest one. It's only got one flat. It's the only one you have to memorize. One flat is F. Do, re, mi, fa, mi, re, do. Do, re, mi, fa. But for B flat, E flat, A flat, and D flat, and G flat, all the rest of them, C is easy. C is easy. It's got nothing. For all the rest of these flats, you go to the second last flat. You see how G flat is purple? Because it's a transitional one. Anyway, I'll explain more later. But you go to the second last flat. So for example, G flat. Bop, 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 bop. Go back up to the second last flat. It's on the line G. You must be in G flat. All of the flats, except for, again, F, are letting you know that you're in a flatted key signature. So if you see flats, you're like, oh, this must be a flatted key signature. It must not be G, B, D, A, or E natural. It's not C sharp. It's not D sharp. It must be E flat or B flat. See what I'm saying? The flats let you know that you're in a flat key. So for the sharps, you go to the last sharp and you go up one. That's what key you're in. For flats, you go to the second last flat, and that is what key you're in. And F is the only one you kind of need to memorize, but it's easy as hell. And another thing to memorize that, it's like another nice little thing. The F has one B in there because it looks like a little letter B, even though it's not a B. It still looks like a B to me. The F has one B in there. And remember what I said? Between the B and the F is a tritone. Look at that. Tritone. F, B. Facebook. Look at that. FGB. Fuck Joe Biden. No. Just kidding. But yeah. F, B. F flat. Whatever. F has one flat in there. There's no F flat key. Because that would just be, technically there is, but typically you just call it the key of E. Here's another little trick. So, if you know that there's 7 notes in a scale, there cannot possibly be more than 7 sharps or flats. Typically there aren't. If you see all flats, 7 flats, you're in C flat. If you see 7 sharps, you're in C sharp. There's like, those are simple. If you see all naturals, you're in C natural. But the key there is 7. Now, if you notice, there can't be more than 7 sharps or flats, right? So if you want to go to a parallel or whatever, I don't know what you'd call that. So if you want to go from G to G flat, you follow me? G to G flat. The difference of these sharps and flats is 7 minus however many accidentals there are. You following me? So if you're in, if you know only your sharp keys, you say, all right, I know the key of G, it's 1 sharp, all right. I know the key of F, it's 1 flat. How the hell am I supposed to memorize the other shit? How am I supposed to know that D flat has 5 flats in it? How? How am I supposed to know that G flat has 6 flats in it? Simple. If you know G and D, then you know G flat and D flat. You know G and D, you know G flat and D flat. G has 1 sharp in it. And if you take 7, the number 7, how many notes there are in a scale, how many possible accidentals can there be? 7. If you take that 7 and subtract 1, look at that. You get 6 flats. See that? The reason this works is is if you take those 7 notes, and there's only one accidental in there, and you sharp all of them, put sharps on all of them, technically, you made one natural, you cancel out this sharp, and all of the rest of them are flat. You feeling me? It's like a math trick. If you take all 7 notes and you alter all of them, you're going to cancel out one, and the remainder, or you're going to cancel out however many you started with, whether it's 2 or 3 or 4, and the remainder, the subtraction of 7, will be altered then. So if you have the key of D, you have 2 sharps, and you want to go to D flat. How many flats is that? 5. What's 5 plus 2? 7. D has 2 sharps. D flat has 5 flats. You following me? The big ones that people get confused with is A and E, because A has 3 and 4 equal 7, so it's like this quadruple, whatever, this little square quadruple of confusion. A has 3 sharps, subtract 7, you get -4. That's 4 flats, or A flat. Now E has 4 sharps, subtract 7, you get -3. That's 3 flats for E flat. See how that correlates? And you see how this A and E and A flat and E flat might be a little tricky because it's like they go in a little cross X kind of pattern. The A goes to A flat with 3 and 4, and then the E flat goes to E with 3 and 4. Anyway, it's very basic. It's very basic. The last thing you have to worry about is B. B and B flat. If you can't remember that B flat has 5 sharps in it, or B flat has 2 flats in it, for some reason when I'm reading, when I was in high school and they started teaching me how to read, sight read, classical guitar, they started with C, and then they had G, and they had D, and then they went with F and B flat. B flat was kind of memorized already, but it only solidified it when I learned that B had 5 sharps, because 5 minus 7, -2. Got that -2, that 2 flat. 2 flats in there. See that? Now, also B flat was the first key that you could use that little trick on, where you go to the second to last flat, and that's your key signature, or that's what key you're in. So that's another reason why I kind of just knew B flat. But then again, when I'm looking at this B, there's yet another way to memorize, well, why does B have 5 sharps in there? And why does D flat have 5 flats in there? For the same reason. How far away is B from C? How far away is D flat from C? It's 1 semitone. See that? It's only 1 half step away. It's right next to each other. They're right next to each other. They're right next to each other. C is next to D flat, and C is next to B. Now, if you look at a piano, you'll notice that there's only 5 black keys. There's only 5 different alterations that a piano sees. The other ones are enharmonic. E sharp, you're never going to have E sharp. If you notice on these key signatures, you're never going to have E sharp. You're never going to have F flat. There's no F flat on these key signatures. You're never going to have a B sharp. You're never going to have a C flat. It's redundant. So to ease up on the redundancy, what they do here it's like if you know that you can only possibly sharpen 5, you can only possibly have 5 black keys on there. This is the maximum amount of alterations that you can have. 5. That's how I memorize B in D flat, kind of. But mostly B. This is the maximum amount of alterations. Technically, you can have 6 flats and 6 sharps, whatever. 7 flats, 7 sharps. But it's typically not written like that. Now, G flat, I mentioned that it's the only transitional key signature because of this 6 flattedness kind of dealio here. See? Anyhow, I think that's enough on key signatures. You got to remember the last sharp in the key signature, you go up, that's your key signature, that's your key tonal center. The second to last flat is your key signature, your tonal center. And then that little rule of subtracting and adding 7, because there's only 7 notes in a scale, leads you to the flat or natural version of that key. G and G flat, B and B flat, even F and F flat. F flat, I guess, I'd have to write it down, but like, my guess is that F flat would have 6 flats in there. Let's try it. F flat. F flat. Do, re, mi, fa, do, do. Yeah. We got your F flat, G flat, A flat. And then a double flat. Technically, this is a double flat. Because the B, that's funny. The B is already flat in F, and if you were to flat it again, it would be a double flat. Do, re, mi, fa, that's a double flat. So, that's a C flat, even though it's a B. Let's put the camera on there. See how there's an F? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, si, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. The only flat in F, in the key of F, is that B flat. But if you move everything down one to F flat, it's an E sort of, which is an F flat, G flat, A flat, B double flat. See what I'm talking about? The enharmonic spelling? So this is G flat, or what was it? F flat, G flat, A flat, my bad. It's an A flat, and then a B double flat. You wouldn't want to use A flat and an A, because each note name, each letter needs to be used in the scale. So F flat, G flat, A flat, B double flat, C flat, even though this is a B. La, ti, do, B flat, E flat, F flat. It's just super confusing because it's like, I'm seeing that as an E, but it's actually an F flat. Okay. Yeah. So that shit is super confusing. F flat, the key of F flat. The reason they don't use it, it's not listed here, is because you'd have a double flat in the key signature. All right, now we leaping into territories a little bit outside of the scope. That's a whole freaking thing on key signatures. I hope you learned something. There's some key signatures that don't exist. All right, here they show you the, oh, let me kind of do that for you. There we go, can you see? Then they give you a nice little cycle. What did I tell you about the cycle, boys? It's super important. I think this is a cycle of fourths, fifths and fourths. No, C, G, D, A, E. Yeah. This is a cycle of fifths. But if you go backwards, it's a cycle of fourths. So if you go clockwise, it's fifths. Backwards, it's fourths. So they're kind of the same. Once you start learning about intervals and inversions, it becomes super easy. It cuts all the work in half, because you'll learn that half of these intervals are just the same, just flipped upside down. Checkpoint, basic checkpoint. Does G3 lie above or below middle C? What do you think? Well, middle C is C4. How is a double sharp notated? You remember? It's that little X. Half steps in the major scale occur between the scale degrees blank and blank, as well as scale degrees blank and blank. Remember? Remember what I told you? Third and fourth scale degree, seventh and eighth or first scale degree. So all this stuff is important, man. I'm telling you. Oops. We good here? We lost the camera? All right, we good. Let's see, what time is it? Am I good on time here? Damn, I took like an hour. Here it gives you some clefs, and it tells you to put the notes for every key signature, it gives you a clef, and then it tells you a scale that it wants you to notate. It'll be like a clef, and it says, all right, write E major in this bass clef. And you're expected to write in the notes, starting on E, going up to E. And then I guess notate the half steps in between, I don't know. Then it says, identify some key signatures. It says, please identify what these key signatures are. Can you identify them? Notate the specified key signatures. A major, D major, F sharp major, B flat major, B major, C flat major. That's kind of advanced. I don't expect you all to be memorizing all this stuff, but if you can do all that stuff, hey, more power to you. Then it gives you some mind games. Now it's not about writing, it's about answering questions. How many, what key signature has 3 flats in it? Blank major, that kind of thing. And then it says, it also goes backwards, like a blank key signature has, wait a minute. Yeah, it says, the name of the key is B major, and how many, now you tell me how many sharps or flats in it has in it. Or B flat major, or whatever. So how many flats and sharps does B flat major have in it? Well, B flat major. How much does B major have in it? I remember it has 5, because that's the maximum alteration that you could put. So the rule of sevens, 5 minus 7 is -2. B flat major must have 2 flats in it. All right. Alrighty. We can go more in depth about that later, whatever. Now this is probably going to be the last little thingy, this little dealio, before I chop this section into 2 sections. Minor key signatures are a little weird. They're not super weird, but no, you know what? I'm going to stop it right here at the minor scales because it's going into melodic, harmonic, and all this shit. This is going to take a long time to explain. They're going to tell you pretty much. We'll catch me in the next episode where we'll go into natural minor scales, harmonic, and melodic. Then they're going to talk about how they're related to the major scales. They're going to talk about why are we sharp with certain things in harmonic minor, all that shit, over melodic minor, why melodic minor has different going up and down. And then it says, how come some minor scales simply don't exist? It has to do, the ones that don't exist have to do with like double sharps and double flats within the key signature. They don't want those to exist. Because technically, if I'm not mistaken, if you already have a double flat or whatever flat in the key signature, and because the minor scale it has within it a sharp or flat that must occur on the leading tone or whatever, if that leading tone is already doubly sharped, you cannot have a triply sharped note. Triple sharp note doesn't exist. It does, but it doesn't. For notation purposes, it doesn't. Yeah. On the next episode, we'll talk about major scales, intervals, and then we'll go into Chapter 2. Intervals could be a whole chapter by itself, honestly. Anyhow, if you're finding this series helpful, if I'm giving you tips and tricks on how to figure all this freaking shit out, like I said, like, comment, share, and subscribe. We're going to be going through this whole book, baby. That was just a little bit of Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is the largest sort of chapter, kind of, because it deals with all the fundamentals. The next pieces are going to be a little bit more bite-sized. If you want to support me, I'll leave links to all that stuff in the bottom. You could just simply listen to my music, listen to my covers, whatever, watch some duckies. I got a bunch of cool stuff on my YouTube page and my website. Please enjoy it. I hope it brings you joy. I hope it brings you education, furthermore. Yeah, this is Sonamor, signing out, teaching tonal harmony, baby. We learning together, baby.